Welcome to the Conversion Podcast, the official podcast of Banbridge Rugby Club, where we share the stories, memories, and people who've made this club what it is today. And for our third episode, I'm joined by Daniel Soper, Paul Tamary, and Colin Bickerstaff, and we're going to talk about our club's link with New Zealand, and in particular, Alexandra Rugby Club there. So to kick it off, for those maybe not familiar with the link and how that came about, Daniel, do you want to give us a bit of background there on how that started?
Yeah, so in 1997, Charlie Hoare was on a rugby tour in the UK. Paul and I played with Charlie in Dunedin. And two of his mates, or our mates, Matt O'Connell and Ryan Dowling, followed Charlie over. And the lads had a bit of a holiday around the UK, which included going to the All Blacks England game at Twickenham, where they ran into a gentleman, Townsend, I can't remember his first name, and he was a cousin of the Fagans from Rathfriland, who suggested as three farm boys from Central Otago they might like to visit a farm in Northern Ireland. So the lads come over, and Richard was going to rugby training, and he said, did the boys have any interest in rugby? And of course they did. So they come to rugby training, and I think they scored 8 tries between them on the weekend for the fourths. So that was where the link sort of started. That was the season before Banbridge went up into the All Ireland League. The club were keen to get a foreigner in for that first year in the All Ireland League. Matt and Charles both went on to play Super Rugby, and so they had bigger things to do in New Zealand. But they did suggest a mate of theirs might be quite keen to come over when he finishes at university. So that was me, and that was how I ended up in Banbridge in November 1998, in time for Banbridge's first All Ireland League game.
So what was your first experience of Ireland like then? What was the run up to that, and what sort of plans did you have to put in place to get over here?
Well, I hate to admit this, but I actually didn't know that Northern Ireland and Ireland were different countries. That's quite controversial, actually, isn't it?
Not really.
Not really.
No,
Not in Banbridge, it's not.
Yeah, I studied in England and they didn't know over there.
So, it seemed odd to me that I had to get a British visa to go to, I thought, Ireland, but anyway. And so it was sort of all getting arranged, and then one night at tea time, my mum phoned me and said, Daniel, your dad and I are just watching the news here, and there's been a bomb go off in a place called Banbridge. Is that not where you're going? I said, no, Mum, I'm going to Banbridge, so it'll be all good. But she did make me phone your dad, and he assured me there would be no issues. And then, of course, my mum phoned me a few weeks later and told me that there'd been a bomb go off in Homer, and was this the best thing that I should be doing, going to Ireland? But again, David assured me that it would be grand, and basically since I've arrived there's been peace, so there we go.
Very good. And what were your first impressions then when you landed?
I landed at about, I travelled with Simon Cooney, a mate from home, and he was keen to tag along, and so he comes. So the two of us arrived, and I think we landed at Belfast International about midday on a Saturday. We were pretty much brought straight to the rugby club here. Had a typically magnificent pre-match lunch put in front of us, along with more pints than you could poke a stick at. And so my initial impressions of Banbridge was, this is actually going to be not too bad, because I'm going to get fed and watered pretty well. So yeah, it was pretty good. I don't really recall much about the game that day, funny enough, but yeah, I played the following week. Mark Waugh actually reminds me all the time. My first game was the following week up at Balnahinch, and I'd arrived out of playing in New Zealand towards the, going into spring. I didn't have the longest studs on my boots, and I had a penalty kick at goal up at Balnahinch to beat them, and I slipped on my backside and the ball rolled along the ground. So Mark immediately sent me down to Shoe Fair to buy some boots that week.
Very good. And what was your impression then of the standard of rugby? How did it compare to the level you'd been playing at in New Zealand at the time?
I think the game was different then. I think, like in New Zealand, we like shift the ball, move the ball to space and get the ball, feed your backs. And these are all the things we grew up with. Listen to our dads shout from the sideline, feed your backs and spin it wide and all this sort of thing. And my first impressions were like, why will they not pass the ball to me? Standing at fullback, but the game has grown so much, hasn't it? In the almost 30 years, and like Ireland are leading the way in so many things around rugby. But to start with, I thought, like, why doesn't anyone pass the ball? That were my initial sort of impressions, but I loved it. My initial impressions around rugby are probably the things not on the rugby pitch, but just the unbelievable community spirit within the rugby club. And that year I remember like travelling in Northern Lee and going to places like Middleton and being in Middleton Rugby Club and it being absolutely packed, full of Banbridge people, and then Middleton would be singing a song and then the Banbridge folks would sing a song back, and I was just like, this is unbelievable. It's like a rock concert. We didn't get up to much in Alexandra back then, but it was pretty cool. So it was the whole rugby experience is what I enjoyed.
So you're originally from Alexandra.
Yep.
So I mean, I suppose the link between the two clubs was established through yourself and probably through your dad, really.
Yeah.
You were talking about your experiences here. How did Alexandra compare?
Yeah, so Alex is where I grew up and played all my mini rugby and then I left when I left school and went down to Dunedin, down to the city. So I actually, as an adult, have only probably played 5 or 6 games for Alexandra. I played a couple as soon as I finished at school, and then when I was back home at different times, I got the odd game. But Alex, I guess, was my home club. It was that was where my parents still live, and Alex and Dad was obviously heavily involved in the club, and so in that first year there were a couple of guys that wanted to go out to New Zealand, and we sort of looked at some opportunities for them, and like I could just see the experience I got from travelling with rugby was so good, and so then for guys like Collie and the likes over the next number of years, and with Dad being heavily involved in Alex and having those connections with Alex, and it being a similar sort of community club, everyone in the town behind the club, and then supporting with jobs and all that sort of thing. It just it was a good fit, and it's continued to this day.
Mm-hmm. And Colin, you went out then a few years later, early 2000s. What were your experiences then going out to Alex? What was your feelings as you sort of set foot on the plane and set off for New Zealand?
Yeah, I went out in 2003. I must have been about 21. I think I was between second and third year at university, or maybe first and second year. Did it in the summer, our summer here and there, winter there, which I didn't really account for. I think I turned up and it was like -7. Something similar to yourself, Soaps. I got picked up by, I think, your dad at Dunedin Airport after like travelling for 24 hours pretty much solid, and then got driven straight to your mum and dad's house, dumped their bags, was told to grab my rugby stuff, straight up to the clubhouse, and I was the first guy there obviously because Wayne helped coach at the time, so he was there early to set up. So I remember sitting in a cold concrete changing room on my own, a wee bit nervous, a young fella from Ireland and the far side of the world. And then boys just sort of started trickling in, and everybody, luckily for me, were very hospitable. they all knew I looked a bit scared and a bit lonely, so they all come over, shook my hand, introduced themselves. And then the captain at the time was a guy, Mouse O'Neill. So he came over and again welcomed me to the club, took me around, introduced me to everybody. And then we were literally straight out onto the pitch, which was almost like a baptism of fire. So it was great for me. So if some of the guys I was meeting, on the pitch, which felt like concrete because it was 7 degrees, and I probably had long studs on because I played rugby here. So I had my 17mm scrummaging studs on, and I was turning up playing on what felt like concrete, and I was like, surely they're not going to train on this. But yeah, they trained on it. And yeah, that was just my first experience, was thrown straight into the deep end. But after the training session, then a few of the lads said to me, look, we're going to the middle pub just because you're here. I got called Irish straight away, so it was Irish or Paddy from day one. I don't think I got called Colin or any of my other nicknames the whole time I was there. So they're like, look, we're going to go to the middle pub. And at the time I didn't ask why it was called the middle. I just assumed there was 3 pubs. So I was like, okay, I'll go to the middle pub. And then there was about 8 guys there, and just they bought me loads of Spates that night. And they're like, you drink Spates now, you don't drink this DB nonsense. And then that was my beer for the time I was there, which again I didn't know was quite a cult thing in Alex. And those guys then became my tight-knit circle of mates, like right from the get-go. So, just basically felt at home straight away, and then it sort of grew from there for me. Like that was my first training session we played that weekend. And then just...
Do you think that they appreciated you more and liked you more because of your abilities on the pitch or at the middle pub?
To be totally honest, probably a bit of both. Because as soon as I said we're going to the pub, I was like, okay. And then, the guys sat on, and then the crowd got smaller and smaller. And then there's probably 4 of us sitting there at the end, and those guys became probably my 4 best mates the whole time I was there.
So why is it called the middle pub if there's not 3?
Well, it took me about I was there for 3.5 months, and I think it took me about 6 weeks to, finally ask the same question. And then somebody told me that the bottom pub had washed away in a flood, but they didn't rename it the bottom and the top. The middle was always the middle, so it was just called the middle.
Still is the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still the middle and the top, but yeah.
But my first night of training, I turned up probably as a semi-cocky 21-year-old, had just played like representative rugby here, had played for the first and all here, and I was turning up there as like 16.5 stone, leaner than I am now, and thought I was like a ball carrying number 8, I was like, yeah, I'm going to really impress when I get out here. And I stood onto the pitch and they split us into backs and forwards. And there was an Otago like training officer guy there. I think he was an ex-All Black, I can't remember his name, but they looked at me and they're like, oh, you're a big fella. What position do you play? And I was like, oh, I'm a number 8. And they're like, have you ever played prop? And I was like, no. Like, will you give it a go? And I was like, yeah, I suppose so. So I get thrust in with 3 instructions that night of how to not get twisted up like a pretzel, which turned out not to work on the Saturday. But this guy was like, yeah, do this, and do this, and you'll be right. And I was like, okay. So quite quickly I realised that, swallow my ego, swallow my pride, and be part of the team, be a cog in the wheel rather than, thinking I was, something special really. So again, it was quite a humbling experience for me, and I was happy to do it. And I think that sort of shaped me a wee bit for the rest of my playing career. Like somebody asked me a while ago there, is there any position you didn't ever play in the pack? And the only one was probably hooker. I played all the rest, and I was always just happy to give it a go. It was probably from that experience in Alex where I was thrown into probably one of the hardest positions, specialist positions, and definitely got an apprenticeship in the time I was there. I don't know if you want me to elaborate on it, but the first week we were playing away from home, and we're playing against this NPC division. This guy was an NPC level tight head prop, and he was a Maori guy. He was as wide as he was tall. So I used my 3 tricks thinking, okay, I'll be all right here. He just absolutely folded me. Every single scrum is like, you could audibly hear me wince, I'm sure. So after the match, I was like, right, I'm going to go buy this guy a beer. So my head was like this, went over and bought him a beer, introduced myself, and I was like, what did you do to me? And then he's like, oh, where are you from, bro? And I was like, I am Irish. So he's like, oh, how long have you been playing prop? And I was like, well, about 2 hours. So he's like, right, sit down. And he goes, what were you trying to do? And I goes, yeah, I tried to keep my arms straight. And he goes, yeah, I seen you were doing that, so I countered you like this. So I was like, right, what I do there? And so he gave me a few more tips. So then after I sort of was able to straighten my body out again by Wednesday, back to training, sort of tried my best on the Thursday night of training on the scrum machine. And then on the Saturday I was out, right, I'm going to have this guy. And then again, I tried my 6 tricks now, and he had a counter trick for all of them. So I went and bought him a beer. So he was like, right, how long have you been playing prop? And I was like, well, 2 weeks now, or a week. So he's like, right, sit down, talk me through what we were trying to do. And I'm not even joking you, but every single week I made it a point of going to buy the guy a swap a crate bottle of Spades. And we sat down, and every single one of them was so generous with their knowledge and their time. And I came away from Alex flying home thinking, I'm the worst prop ever. And I landed back here, and they were like, oh, we heard you were playing prop out in New Zealand. Will you give it a shot for us? I was like, yeah, I'm no good, but yeah, I'll give it a go. And then my first week back here, I started folding other boys into pretzels. So I was like, so the apprenticeship I got out there, when I come back here, I found propping pretty handy then, and then I ended up, that was my primary position for most of the rest of my career. So yeah, I learned the hard way.
Mm-hmm. So Paul, you're not from Alex, but you knew Daniel, and you came over here in the early 2000s as well. And you're still here, and a bit like Daniel, you fell in love here as well, so you're fairly settled.
With each other.
Well,
No.
what were your first experiences like of Banbridge, and what was it that you liked so much here that made you stay and establish roots?
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't part of the peace talks like Daniel or the Good Friday Agreement, but so didn't have that opportunity. But yeah, I came over in 2001, and I was bunking up with Jeff Fraser in his house, and Daniel. I came back over with you actually on the way back in 2001. Down a bit like Collie's experience, to be honest. Straight down to the club for training. I think we got on a Monday night. It's club training on Tuesday. By Thursday, I was doing the pub crawl up the town.
Wednesday night in the coach.
Maybe.
You probably got ID, did you?
Yeah, I did. I was very youthful looking. Wasn't as lean as yourself, but yeah, I was youthful looking. But yeah, do you know what? And like as you say, the boys taking in. I think we did a buckfast pub crawl up the town, right?
I must have been there.
Yeah, you were there. And so yeah, woke up on Friday. Wasn't feeling 100%, but listen, I just think we are embraced by the people over here, if I'm completely honest, straight into a group of people that were very welcoming, just so hospitable. Like I can't express, and I'm sure Daniel's the same, and anyone who's come here, how hospitable the people of this part of the world are, and particularly this club. And so, yeah, a lot of opportunities, I think, over here for people as well. Do you know what I mean? From the other side of the world and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, listen, incredibly hospitable place. Really enjoyed myself. And listen, things were going all right. We just kept them going. Like I was supposed to end up in London with a lot of our other friends actually that were over there from university and stuff like that. Had a couple of weekends and we're there. I'm from a pretty rural area in across the hill actually from Alexandra, a place called Amarama. My club is Koorau. We have a pretty famous All Black. I'm not sure if you guys do, and Alex, do you? Any famous All Blacks? Don't think you do. Richie McCaw, I think it's some, you might know him, but yeah. So not quite from Alex, but certainly a pretty rural town in New Zealand, and coming here and being part of it's a rural area as well, and rural connections, a lot of farming and all those sorts of things too. So for me, yeah. I really enjoyed myself here and was happy not to go anywhere else at that time, to be honest. So, yeah, it's great.
And you were talking about, I suppose, the fact you were in a rural part of New Zealand. And
yep.
I mean, the links between Banbridge and Alexandra actually extended further out, Daniel. There were other clubs have benefited from players coming here, and likewise, we've benefited from players coming from other parts of Otago as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right back in the first year, I think it was the first year, wasn't it? It wasn't the first year. The first year was Mark Best and Jonathan Clydesdale and Johnny Poole. And they come, what they did, they come down to Dunedin. I'd been here, was back in Dunedin playing, Paul and I playing together. And the three lads would come and they would spend, the theory was, brilliant theory, they would come and spend the early part of the week in Dunedin, train at Dunedin with us, gym and that sort of thing in Dunedin. And then on a Thursday they would go up country and they would play for Alex and Maniatoto on the weekend, which was Charlie and Ryan's club. And then the second year, Simon Cahill came, he came out to New Zealand.
He was with Stuart Wilson that year, was
Stewie came
And
as
Stu,
well.
yeah, that's right. And Stu was going up to play for Alex, and Simon was going to play for Maniatoto, and they lived with Andrew Hoare and I in Dunedin, and Andrew ran a fairly strict household, fairly, get the work done and so forth, and Simon might have got a reminder one night on the end of his nose about doing the dishes and when they should be done, but lots of good times. With the lads, in fact, the first year, the three lads, do you remember they flatted out the
North East Valley.
North East Valley
Yep.
with the
Charlie.
three girls, Shirley, and they were three really good-looking girls. And when I took the three lads there to say, this is where you're going to be living, and the three girls opened the door, it was almost like, what's that movie where the guys go to America?
it was Love Actually.
Love Actually, it was like that.
Colin Frizzle.
Yeah, but now it didn't finish quite like that. But the lads were like, their eyes were wide open when the door opened and the three girls invited them in. But I think Mark almost burnt the house down one night with a lamp or something. But anyway, yeah, don't know. Lots of clubs, and then like there's always once that dialogue gets out there that that was really good, or Collie's gone and had a great experience, or someone in New Zealand hears about guys go to Ireland and have a good experience, and like Dad's always like phoning and saying, oh here, listen, do you remember Matt Johnson worked for me on the, and I'm like, Dad, like you're talking about, I haven't lived there for that long. All right, well he's quite keen to go to Ireland and play rugby, what do you think? So even like there's conversations going on at the moment about four lads from Alex that are keen to travel and come over, and I think it's just brilliant. There was Brad and Tyler and that were here, and they had a great time here, and then Hookie was out there a couple of years ago. Ethan Mount's out there at the moment with Luke Gibson, and there's just a nice link going each way. So
When you go out, then there's good arrangements put in place, accommodation, jobs. Colin, you got working in a vineyard when you were there.
But obviously, because it was the winter, there wasn't much fruit and stuff about to like pick or work on. So when we were there, we were out in the morning from 7:30, 8 o'clock, and eating fresh Granny Smiths off the trees. It's pretty special. Pretty cold though, all the same. And because when we turned up, because I was a student, I had no money whatsoever. So we went down to what the guys call the op shop, which is like a charity shop. So all the clothes I wore when I was out there, I just looked like I was homeless. I had a big massive coat that I bought for like $5 and stuff.
Should we have to buy you that jersey tonight, didn't we?
yeah. And then I stayed there for about 3.5 months. And the first 6 or 8 weeks I was there, I stayed with Sosa's folks, Wayne and Pam, and we stayed out in the back of their house in a garage. And I don't know,
now hold on. you were
It's called a
But
sleep out.
it was a sleep out.
It's called
So
a
it
sleep out
was-
in New Zealand.
when I was a teenager, Mum and Dad wanted me out of the house, but not too far away.
Yeah.
So we insulated half of the garage, and it had a shower and
it definitely
toilet.
didn't feel like it was insulated.
We don't have central heating in New Zealand, though.
No, I know. I knew that now as well.
That-
-6.
yeah.
And
Just an extra duvet.
well, that's the thing with all my op shop clothes. I used to go to bed at night, and we had one oil-filled radiator for the whole
Yeah.
sleep out.
Were you
slash-
allowed to turn it on? Because
We
Mum wouldn't
your
let me
dad
use it.
came out at night time, made sure we'd turned it off.
yeah,
So we were like just some sort of cruelty. So I was lying in bed with all my clothes on for work the next day, all the blankets, and I could see my breath. And I was questioning my life choices. And then the alarm would go off at 7 o'clock, and I went out there with another guy, Ian, he was going out to play football for the local football team. But he took about an hour in the morning to get ready. I slept in my work clothes, so I could just get out of bed, brush my teeth, and leave the house. But I had to get up. I had to set my alarm an hour early to wake him up so then he could get a shower, do his hair, put all his jewellery on, put his aftershave on, and I'd be sitting in the car with the car warm, ready to go. And I'd be like, why have you taken so long to get ready to go and work in the vineyard when it's just you and me in a farm? Like every day, he would do it every day. And a lot of days he just wouldn't come to work. I have to go on my own.
Bit of self-care there.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
a lot more self-care than I had anyway.
Maybe to your earlier point, Tim, but like we've probably got a lot of stories, a lot of mates that went to other places that didn't get, I suppose, looked after maybe as well. And I think that, you know, it's been reciprocal, obviously, because you know people and, you know, and the importance of that. And so, like, it's I suppose for me, it wasn't, from the stories that we heard, it wasn't like you just, you know, there's loads of guys that have gone to clubs and stuff like that in the UK, Scotland, Wales, whatever it would be, and like we've heard some horror stories about this. Do you know what I mean? And promises not kept and all those sorts of things. Whereas
Having to sleep in the garage. -7.
I thought he was.
Hey, Wayne's gonna.
I thought he was clear about that
Oh, no.
before you came over.
I was very grateful.
But yeah, like you know, you get, there's no empty promises coming to a club like this. Do you know what I mean? People do look after you. People do, you know, back up what they're talking about. And yeah, as I say, you're just so well looked after. It's unbelievable, and just that's not the case everywhere.
Yeah, and I can mirror that from my experience going the other way. Like everybody went out of their way to make me feel at home, introduce themselves. Like even like Wayne would have came to me during the week and says, right, you're going to such and such's house tomorrow night for dinner. And I'd have been just like, okay, and would have turned up and it would just been like an Alexandra and his wife's house. So there might have been like these 60-year-old people that were just bringing us in to just sort of feed us and find out that a genuine interest in me and, you know, why I was there. And that really stuck with me, like, you know, and they didn't have to do it, but every week we almost went to somebody else's house and got fed. And, you know, and then I would have seen them down the shops maybe at the weekend and everybody's like, well, hi. Everybody still called me Irish or Paddy. Hi Irish, who's got this weekend? And every shop you went into, everybody knew that you were there to play rugby. And even after after work and stuff, we used to go up to the top pub then, and you would turn up. And which I really loved about being in Alex was like there was no real like airs and graces. Everybody was just rough and ready and didn't care. And you would have turned up to the pub. There would have been 30 pairs of work boots outside the pub, and all the guys had just finished work, straight into the pub, and you would have walked in. Somebody would have shouted, "Irish, do you want a beer?" And you're like, "Yep." And you would have stayed there for 2 hours playing pool, just being relaxed. And everybody came over, bought you a beer, asked you how you get on at the weekend, who you playing this weekend. And that was the theme for me too. Like everybody, you know, really made an effort, and I felt at home and felt really part of the community.
And your mum and your dad visited then a few years after you'd landed,
Yep.
and had quite a good time.
They did. They had a magnificent time. They were so well looked after. I think they were here for a month. They stayed out at the Ferris's out at Jarrett's Pass, wasn't it? Andy Duke got them a car sorted, and they were just made to feel so welcome. The day they arrived, I picked them up, and I was under instruction to take them straight to the Downshire. And they walked in the Downshire. Dad was handed a pint of Guinness. He was like a foot in the door, pint of Guinness. He'd never drank Guinness. We weren't sure how that was going to go, but it went pretty good. And yeah, people were having them at their place for dinner. The Lawsons, Collie Lawson that had played here and had been out to play in Alex. The Lawsons took them on the boat over to Scotland to show them around and the likes, and it was brilliant. And then they got to they got to see a few games as well, and I remember they were here, it was sort of March, April time, so it was the end of the season, the weather was getting decent, and they were here and we had the Fiddly D band in the corner on the Saturday afternoon, and the two things I remember about that day was, more than two, but my mum up on top of the seats over in the corner dancing up on top of the seats. I was like, oh no. But she was disgusted with the smoke. She didn't like the smoke. But anyway, and Dad obviously did enjoy the Guinness, and I remember he must have been quite late on because he said, this is the greatest rugby club I've ever been to. So yeah, it was. They had a great time. They were very, very well looked after, and it was. They had a brilliant time. Yeah.
I can't remember whether it was you told me the story or your dad, but when he first went on to the M2, M5, motorway, and there's like 5 lanes each side. And it blew his mind because he'd never seen a road as big.
Yeah. Well, Alexandra doesn't have traffic lights. It has one roundabout, and it's very, very easy to drive. Yeah, and they were driving out to go up north, I think, and it was. I wish that back in the day we had the old camera that we could have put in the car. It would have made good TV.
Funny, you were talking about the time, the Fiddly D band and your mum enjoying it and your dad saying it's a great club era. And me and Collie were talking earlier about the times where you just need to pinch yourself and ask yourself, would you rather be anywhere else in the world right now? And certainly for me, a couple of times in this rugby club, you're sitting there and going, this is unbelievable. And certainly when you're younger and just realising you're on the other side of the world and being part of something that you never thought you would ever be, and you'd wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world.
There's something about an All-Ireland League Saturday. I don't know if the lads still feel it. I hope they do. But back when we were playing, you would have been coming through the gates, especially like maybe this time of year when it was coming into spring.
Yeah.
And there was the excitement and buzz of playing the match, and then you come in here afterwards, and all the guys would have been sitting at long tables drinking Guinness, and the band would have been playing. The atmosphere, it was electric.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else either.
Yeah, hard to beat, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the odd bus trip that started on Friday, come back on late on Sundays.
Oh, that was
when you're in the
wild.
All-Ireland League, and
I
couldn't believe the travelling.
We're meeting at midday on Friday.
Yeah, off to Clonakilty. I remember that, and
you're like on the bus
for the motorway and 8 hour. It was like 8 hour bus ride or something.
Yeah, I think it was like near 7. Clonakilty was the longest one we ever did.
It was wild. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, yeah.
And, Paul, are there any particular moments stand out for you in terms of your trips away with the club that you can't talk about?
Careful.
I wasn't going to go there.
Careful.
Listen, unbelievable camaraderie with this group of boys. Do you know what I mean? Playing in the All-Ireland League, travelling the length and breadth of this country, like unbelievable. And meeting guys from other teams, and as Daniel was saying, the singing that goes on and all those sorts of things.
The singing is just so like we would have never seen.
Not like that.
People singing in a rugby club in New
and
Zealand,
the passion about it. Do you know what I mean? And not like that. No.
Yeah.
And like that's great to be a part of. But
there was a full range of songs. Though sometimes in the club it was quite pure, nice Irish songs, and then back on the bus you would have got Ronan Keaton. You said best when you said nothing at all, and 20 lads harmonising with their tops off.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
And you on guitar maybe, Tim?
Maybe, yeah. No, yeah. We had some great bus trips. Connemara, right? Don't get me wrong. There's loads of memories about Connemara, but
careful.
I couldn't believe. Like I remember actually another pinch yourself moment. The pitch in Connemara. If you've ever stood up looking
most westerly club in Europe.
Yeah, looking down at that pitch.
Yeah.
And like the water coming in through the cove and stuff like that, and going, I've never seen such a picturesque pitch in my life.
Yeah.
I'm still wondering how the balls don't end up in that cove. To be honest, a few times, but
you think you're looking down there, and the next thing you're looking at's America or Canada. You're looking right across the Atlantic.
Yeah,
it's a pretty special place.
Yeah, it was unbelievable, and then the town, Clifton Town. Just nice. Small town. You cruise around, and you'll meet the guys from the other team, and out and around the bars and stuff like that. Like it was brilliant. So.
It was the same in New Zealand. When I went there, like it was so picturesque for me, so different of a landscape than here. We maybe take here for granted, but like we were playing maybe in Queenstown with the mountain behind as a backdrop, and playing in Dunedin and stuff, and then taking different bus journeys home. There was one time we took a bus journey the country way home. The guys all debated whether to come back the main way or go country, and they decided they had a conflab in the back of the bus. The senior lads goes, we'll go country. So I was like, I was just a passenger, so I'll just do whatever, no problem. So we went country, we stopped at this, apparently there's this one pub at a junction that all the teams stopped at on the way home. If you were playing like on the east coast or playing Dunedin. Yeah. And we turned up, and it was Tri-Nations time, so the All Blacks were playing South Africa, so it was on a big screen. And we walked in, and I went to go to the toilet, and I was talking to a guy beside me, and somebody from behind me goes, Oi, Irish, where are you from? And I turned around, and it was a guy sitting on a toilet with the cubicle open, doing his business, and I was like, I'm from Ireland. He goes, yeah, I know that. And I was like, he goes, whereabouts? And I goes, well, Northern Ireland to be specific. He goes, yeah, well, whereabouts? And I says, you wouldn't know, it's a wee place called Banbridge. And before I could say it's between Newry and Belfast, he then named 3 people from this club. He's like, do you know such and such? I think it was Albert Finney and somebody else. And I was like, how do you know them? And then it turns out he was the brother of one of the guys that had been here, VD or VJ.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
So that's Ryan.
Yeah, so
Ryan, that was here,
Yeah, VD.
one of the originals. Yeah.
yeah,
And then VD came here, and well, there's about
EJ and Odie as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
About
geez, we know.
the
Listen,
Dowlings. There's a
so
fair
we
swag
had this
of
conversation when he was on the toilet. I was standing there, and then he got up, and then shook my hand. I was like, "Come on, I'll buy you a beer." I was like, "All right, no problem." So yeah, random, middle of the country, just met another guy that had either been here, his brother had been here.
extremely hygienic, those
Yeah.
Central Target farmers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What advice would you give for someone who was thinking about going out to New Zealand on the exchange to Alexandra?
just whoever offers it to you, bite their hand off. Frankly, it was the best thing I've probably ever done in my life. Like I know I was only 3.5 months, but I talk about it, reference it all the time. Talk about it with my kids, my wife, and it's still the place I want to get back to. You know, we've always like fantasized about saving up and doing maybe like a 2-month trip over the summer at some stage, maybe for my 50th, which is crazy to say. It's looming down. I'm only 44, by the way, so I've got 6 years to see it. But absolutely do it, you know, and go there with an open mind and a good attitude and say yes to everything, because you just never know where it leads. Like the amount of times someone turned up at the door on a Sunday and goes, "Do you want to go and do this?" And I hadn't a clue what it was. I just went, "Yeah," and ended up at Milford Sound, or which is like one of the most picturesque places in the world I've ever been, or Fox's Glacier, or ended up skiing in my op shop gear again up in Wanaka. Catriona Mountain one day, just the guys were like, "Oh, we're going skiing," or I ended up snowboarding naked up the Old Man Range one day, off the back of Ted's Hilux Jeep. The guys were like, "Do you want to go up the top of this mountain and do this?" I was like, yeah, whatever. And you just don't know what happens. And it could lead to, just anything. And
White horse, that sort of thing.
yeah. And just like there was one experience I had, just probably sums up my whole time there, and just the people's attitude and how warm they all are, and which I think that's why we're such a good fit, because we're similar people. I think similar crack, similar values. But like at the end of my trip, I went up to Auckland, and somebody had scribbled down a bit of paper. Somebody from Alex that I knew, one of the lads I played rugby with, and he says, "Look, if you make it as far as Auckland, phone this guy, tell him who you are, and you might be able to crash on a sofa." Or he says, like, "I'm sure you will be able to crash on a sofa." So I phoned this guy on the way into Auckland. He hadn't a clue who I was, and he's like, "Yeah, come round." Took us in. That night, like, just showed us the best hospitality ever. Had never met me before, and it was just like, "And who do you know again from Alex?" And I said, "Yeah, whoever it was." And it turns out like we ended up staying there for like a week, and the whole week we were there, like we ended up going to like the Auckland races and just doing loads of different things, because just said yes to everything. And I think it's probably a good attitude for life, really.
Funny enough, I was told probably a couple of weeks before I came over, it was actually a professor of university, Nathan Matthews, professor at the time, and said to me, "You'll never find a country and people that are as like-minded as New Zealanders as you will in this country over here where you're going." And probably never a truer word, if I'm completely honest. You've talked about, the humour, the crack, the loyalty, and those sorts of things. So, for me, that has stood the test of time. That I don't forget that conversation, and I'm very lucky.
And Daniel, what advice would you give to someone in New Zealand thinking about coming here for a season?
Well, the last piece of advice I got when I left New Zealand to come here the first time was from my mother as I was going to board the plane, and she said, "Don't meet any nice Irish girls." So I completely ignored that piece of advice. But look, much like what Collier said, just like it's the great thing about travelling with rugby is that as soon as you land, like it was all for the same for all of us and for anyone, as soon as you land, you've immediately got 15 tight mates, and bigger, the full club, whatever. But you land into a community, and you don't have to you don't have to take time to sort of find your feet in the community and meet people, because it happens on the first day that you land in the club, be it on a Tuesday night for training or a Saturday for the game. And like the guys are saying, the similarities between New Zealand and Ireland, or Alex and Banbridge, they're so the same that it is just like being at home. I think you said that earlier, Collie, didn't you? So straight away you've got these people that are supporting you and creating these opportunities for you. Like Collie's talked about his opportunities, and Tama talking about going to the trips to Dublin, and Jeff taking us to Donegal and all these sorts of things, and it just opens doors so quickly for that overseas experience that you're going for, and there's nothing quite like the challenge of going. And when you're playing rugby in your wee bubble of the league or the competition you're playing in, Collie was saying he was the big dog, number 8 and all that, and he went out of his comfort zone, and he was challenged to try something else, and that was the same for us coming here. Probably a lot around the expectation for us around leadership as much as anything, and going after that. So the opportunities that you sort of don't expect are there, but the doors that opens are just you just got to take them.
Probably what you don't realise, and because sometimes we're so young at the time, is actually there's loads of people that have got your back and are looking out for you that you didn't even realise that did. Do you know what I mean? And I don't underestimate the amount of people that probably get me right on a number of situations and stuff that you just don't even realise. And that's because you're part of a wider family, a community, and hopefully that's likewise with the guys from here going out to New Zealand. Is that you do have people that don't wrong, showing you a good time, hospitality and all that, but also looking out for you when you don't even realise, because you're so young at that time. So certainly appreciate a lot of that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, gents, thank you very much for sharing your experiences. I was really interesting, and that's it for episode 3 of the Conversion Podcast. But keep in touch with the club and everything that's going on. We've got the Gala Ball coming up in June, and more events happening later on in the year to celebrate the centenary year. Thank you.